AEW's 2022 has been eventful, to say the least. There was definitely some fantastic moments, promos, and matches, but compared to their very dominant 2021, this year was filled with many unfortunate circumstances. Cody Rhodes leaving the company, multiple injuries, backstage fights with Sammy Guevara, Andrade El Idolo, Eddie Kingston, and most infamously, CM Punk and the Elite. With that more than likely leading to Punk never returning to the company. But there was still plenty of positives. MJF rising further as wrestling's greatest heel, new signings of terrific talent like Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee, Danhausen, Athena, Roosh, William Regal for the year, Claudio Castagnoli, Saraya, with those not being all of them. And whether on television or pay-per-view, they always managed to deliver some fantastic matches. And just like every other year with AEW, it was so fucking hard to think of just 10. I'm Duke from Duke It Out, here to rank the top 10 AEW matches of 2022. Like I mentioned, it was really hard to get this list together, so here are the many honorable mentions. Anarchy in the Arena. I know, it's brilliant. It was so close. Hangman Page versus Adam Cole at Revolution. Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho at Revolution. Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes in Cody's last AEW match. Claudio versus Konosuke Takeshita might be the most underrated match of the whole year. United Empire versus Death Triangle. Dax versus Cash. Darby versus Jeff Hardy. Kingston versus Ishii. Moxley versus Tanahashi. Or Bryan. There's so many more, so please feel free to comment any other ones so they get their praises as well. Oh yeah, Acclaim versus FTR, Joe versus Darby, and Action Andretti's upset of Jericho. Okay, I'm done. Number 10, Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter, Full Gear. While there was some drama in AEW this year, one of the positives was the women's division rising from the ranks with great matches and signings bringing in more draws, along with a little bit of drama. There were some other great matches this year from the likes of Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, or Serena Deeb, but the last AEW Women's World Title match of the year managed to top all of them. Toni Storm was a beyond welcome signing to AEW, and she's a generational talent that brings out that extra passion to the sport. And while I wasn't as familiar with Jamie Hayter's career before she came to AEW, she's quickly shown she's one of the best ring workers in the business. And the chemistry in this match was stiff, back and forth, and kept getting more nail-biting. Storm brought terrific grapples, strikes, and showed the resiliency kicking ass while having a very bloody nose. And Hayter really showed why she has earned this spot with brilliant counters, very intelligent timing, and the forearms or clotheslines she delivered were insane. And the unpredictability was at a breaking point when it reached the final half. The Rebel and Britt Baker interferences could have taken heat away, but they were very welcome, which made all the kickouts even more shocking. Then with Hayter winning the title to a great pop, brought out the kind of shock and satisfaction I've rarely gotten all year. And this match was the first step in the right direction for a fantastic 2023 in that division. Number 9, Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz versus Jericho Appreciation Society, Blood and Guts. It was very hard to choose between this and Anarchy in the Arena, but I think the Blood and Guts match has the advantage of being able to be an insane spot fest with the chaos not being as all over the place. It also helped that I was able to be second row ringside for this match in AEW's Detroit debut. There was the downfall of Santana getting injured very quickly into the match, but everything else was the good kind of shocking to watch, while being amazing to witness. Jericho taunting on the outside was hilarious. Wheeler Yuta and Sammy Guevara bringing out potentially the best ring chemistry of the match. Jon Moxley giving more brutal spots like with thumbtacks. Hager, Garcia, Parker, and Menard bringing in the dominant heel spots while greatly selling the shit that they took. And Eddie Kingston was the true MVP, bringing in the aggression, got the crowd 10 times more amped, literally tore the ring apart, and his murder attempt on Sammy Guevara is one of the most replayable spots of the year. From my angle when I watched it, I was afraid Sammy fucking died. Then the terrific action on top of the cage to conclude the match. Claudio swinging away was scary as hell, and the ending with Eddie about to beat Jericho, but Claudio made Menard tap before it could happen is one of AEW's biggest missed opportunities of the year. But doesn't mean they can't start it up again for 2023. While the previous Blood and Guts match was talked about for its sadder ending, this one will be talked about for its chaos, brutality, and the amazing work all of these guys brought to get it done. Number 8, CM Punk versus MJF Revolution. While the progression and opinions of CM Punk have been massively changed since 6 months ago, there's no denying that the dog collar match he had with MJF at Revolution is top candidate for the greatest match of his AEW career. Punk walking out to his ROH entrance with the ROH gear is one of the most unforgettable moments of the entire year. I remember it giving me goosebumps when I first watched it. And the match itself has the intensity, genuine fear, and all that's needed in a match for a very personal rivalry. The spots with the chain were hard to watch, them using microphones even got highlighted way better than most could achieve. And the loss of blood from both, mainly Punk, brought out the passion that can help justify performers going to these kind of extents. Plus, Wardlow's face turn remains one of the company's best crowd reactions of the year. While it seems like we may never get a match from these two again, this dog collar match brought out the fighting will of both characters, showed off each chunk of the build-up they gave for this match, and even when it got to slower paces, almost every movement of this match felt warranted and further let me sink into that story. Number 7. Hangman Page vs. Bryan Danielson, Dynamite. I've mentioned before that I do prefer their 60-minute draw match at Winter is Coming, but that doesn't mean that their match on the TBS debut of Dynamite isn't a barn burner of a match. This rematch was able to pull off the slower tactics while consistently feeling like the adrenaline was at full speed the entire time. The chemistry was also just as amazing as their first match, but with that time limit draw the previous time, they cranked the brutality up to 11. Bryan bringing out the best of his heel persona, with brutal headbutts, terrific grappling into very vicious submissions. And the focus he had on Hangman's shoulder and arm is one of the many reasons why the American Dragon is praised as the best. And Hangman brought out the kind of resiliency only he has been able to deliver in AEW. The comeback showing terrific anger, each impressive move showing the more desperate urge to win, and the more it went on, he proved he could not only equal to Bryan's work, but beat it. And the intensity rose even more toward the end, with both being busted open, especially Bryan, who we haven't seen red in more than a decade. And the concluding win for Hangman felt very earned, especially with how amazing the match was. And is a signification to what I think is the most underrated world title reign in AEW's shorter history. Number 6. Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, and Minoru Suzuki vs. Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota Umino. Forbidden Door. Some matches can already be amazing, but they can blow your mind even more when you are not even close to expecting the kind of match you'd receive. The opening match to the main card of Forbidden Door did just that, and then some. It also had the advantage that this was the first match for a very active crowd, which made every moment even more adrenaline-fueled, especially being there live. Wheeler Yuta kicked it off brilliantly with the multiple German suplexes on Jericho. Suzuki killing it as always, no-selling the chops from Eddie and faking a suicide dive attempt. Eddie Kingston making sure the energy was always consistent, and the closing chemistry with Shota Umino and Chris Jericho was phenomenal. Etching that bit of history with Jericho previously attacking Shota's father, beloved New Japan referee nicknamed Red Shoes Uno, along with some very believable near falls and great back and forth sequences. Umino doing the walls of Jericho was one of the best crowd reactions of the whole night. Sometimes only a little bit of story is all you need with some amazing pro wrestlers that all had their own style to bring to this match. A really underrated 6-man tag. Number 5. The Elite vs. United Empire, Dynamite. The return of Kenny Omega was the most talked about thing of the Trios title tournament, until the day after it was over. And when we found out we'd be getting to see Kenny and Will Osprey in the same ring after them trash-talking the hell out of each other in interviews or on social media, many fans were extremely hyped, including myself. And it opened in a hilarious way, with Justin Roberts announcing ways Kenny Omega is better than Will Osprey. And if you know the credentials of these guys, it's an easy guess that this match instantly became a spot-filled, jaw-dropping, and nail-biting main event for television. Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis sold everything very well, but also locked up the brutality. And with them being less known than the other 4 in the match, it made every bigger move more intense, wondering if it'd be the conclusion. The Young Bucks were consistent with amazing solo or tag team moves, especially Nick Jackson, adding fun twists into some of his classic spots. Kenny Omega bringing back what we've missed and selling the potential ring rust he could have had, and Osprey kept his laser focus non-stop, with mind-blowing landings and some of the most memorable TV spots of the year, like almost all of his exchanges with Omega and that shooting star tombstone. When it was happening, fans didn't know when we could be getting this match again, and it made everyone rejoice for every minute. Now that we know we're getting Omega vs. Osprey at Wrestle Kingdom, we'll see if they can top it. They probably will. Number 4. Jon Moxley vs. Wheeler Yuta, Rampage. I've praised this match in another video, and one statement from there definitely remains true. Moxley vs. Yuta is one of pro wrestling's best star-making matches of all time. The story of Wheeler Yuta wanting Blackpool Combat Club's respect or approval was fantastic, which brought extra intensity to every move or kickout he delivered. But credit also needs to be given to Jon Moxley for his dominant performance that only the top respected stars of the business could perform so convincingly. He not only performed the offense very well, but perfectly selling the shock of Wheeler's resiliency. And speaking of which, Wheeler Yuta kicking out of 2 Death Riders, bleeding like a faucet while continuously trying to keep earning the respect of the fans and all of Blackpool Combat Club. It brings that kind of reaction to fans that is so rare. And it led to one of the most adrenaline-pumping and jaw-dropping matches of the year. Then adding more brilliance in the end with a defeated Yuta still being accepted into the group. And he has continued to skyrocket that dominance since then, as this list has shown. Number 3, Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed, All Out. This is by far AEW's most shockingly amazing match of the year. The card for this year's All Out had so many brilliant looking matches already, so not as much thought was going into this match. And the popularity of the Acclaimed was definitely underestimated. Their alliance with Billy Gunn was another case of wrestling's most random team-ups getting the most over. The phrase, "Scissor me daddy ass," has taken the wrestling world by storm. And you could tell with the crowd hilariously chanting, "Oh, scissor me daddy," half of the match. It was another event I was able to attend live, and I was in sheer laughter in the best possible ways during those chants. And it helped that the in-ring action kept getting consistently better, along with Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee brilliantly performing as the heels of the match. I don't know if it was the plan at that time, but Swerve kept upping the aggression, and Keith Lee just being such an unstoppable force, you couldn't help but root against him when he's up against the most over people of the entire show. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens kept showing off their intelligent charisma while showing how much they've improved as pro wrestlers since the company started. Caster showing off his strength, getting the Super Cena-like moment, and Anthony Bowens being a very undervalued spot man. Those impressive showings, combined with the amazing solo or double team moves from Swerve in Our Glory, brought some amazing near falls in each portion of the match, making everyone wonder what was going to happen. The Acclaim did get their moments soon after this, but part of me still wishes they called the audible that night, because the only other thing that would have made this already beaming tag team match more amazing was that big potential pop in Chicago. Number 2, FTR versus the Young Bucks, Dynamite. Full disclosure, this one I'm reading from the script when I last talked about this match, but it's a little edited. While we did get a phenomenal match between them at Full Gear 2020, this was the first Young Bucks FTR match in front of the big crowd that they were meant to perform in front of. And this might just be the best tag team match in Dynamite history. FTR being on the run of their lives, already having one of their 3 classics against the Briscoes just days before this match, and their babyface energy was as electrifying as it could be. I could list so many of these spots and near falls that made me jump out of my seat. Like the Young Bucks showing off some of their best heelish tactics, the counters from both being so consistently impressive, showing how much these two teams have gotten to know each other in the ring. And it caps off with the wonderful finish of FTR hitting a BTE trigger, giving Matt a smooch and a big rig for their first win against the Young Bucks. I honestly haven't been that happy with a win on wrestling television in a really long time. A match to purely describe tag team wrestling at its best, and especially for TV, you really can't get any better than this. And number 1, Will Osprey versus Orange Cassidy, Forbidden Door. I sometimes love when professional wrestling can embrace its silliness and bring out some amazing entertainment. But when that's also added into a straight up pro wrestling match that has some of the greatest in-ring spots of the year, it creates my favorite AEW match of 2022. Will Osprey versus Orange Cassidy was the most anticipated match of the Forbidden Door card for a lot of people. And within 5 minutes of it starting, they proved why fans were so hyped. Orange Cassidy's character has continued to be one of the best in the business, being able to show off the traits that made him popular while further proving himself as one of the greatest in-ring performers in all of modern wrestling. The mind games he pulled on Osprey were amazing, which then brought more shock into any terrific move he performed. Him countering the Stormbreaker into a Hurricane Rana pin combo might be the greatest near fall I've ever witnessed live. And it was also my first time being able to see Will Osprey wrestle in person. And this performance was a straight up highlight reel for his moveset. And he showed off the heelish charisma wonderfully, flipping off the crowd and mocking Cassidy whenever he could. And he continues to impress with some of the craziest landings and quickest move changes you'll ever see. And not many can perform it as well as he can. This match really was the perfect balance of character work with back and forth wrestling that can leave anyone on the edge of their seat. Even though I thought it was more easier to guess that Osprey was going to win, there was not a single second of the match when I wasn't guessing. until the Stormbreaker was actually hit. There are plenty of amazing matches from Cassidy over the past few years, but this one with Osprey not only was able to show off the highlights to Cassidy's character, but brought the best in the fueled back and forth moments that was some of the most neatly executed spots in years. And oh yeah, right after it's over, we get an appearance from Katsuyori Shibata. And it still isn't any of the reason why this match made the top of the list. It's that good. So that was my top 10 AEW matches of 2022. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and duke out your opinions below in the comments.